I'm just going to check if we are live streaming. We are good. So good morning, everyone. And those of you joining us on live stream, we're going to move into second day of our 2022 budget deliberations. At the beginning of every new day of deliberations, administration will provide some responses to questions that we posed the day before that they weren't able to respond to. And then we will start our agenda as per Wednesday, December 1st in the package. So with that, and welcome back to Ms. Klamosko. We are glad to have you back here in person. So whenever you're ready, Ms. Klamosko.
All right, so just to follow up on some of the questions that were posed at our first day. So there was a question about wanting more FCSS and Parks and Rec updates to council. So I just wanted to provide an update that there was some time already scheduled for council workshop on January 25th to provide the next update to council from those departments. So another question that was raised was about the potential of switching equipment between the enforcement services and agricultural services departments for the replacement of the quad. So those discussions are taking place. So we'll bring more information on that on Monday to council. Another question that was asked was, what are we currently paying in WCB premiums? In 2021, we are paying $217,600 in premiums.
Sorry, what was that number?
$217,600. The next question, there was some questions around the Nisku Recreation Center and asking about having a meeting to discuss the building. So that is a scheduled workshop for December 14th.
December 14th, thank you.
So another question about the website were how many people are signing up for notifications on the website? So there's a few different pieces I'll speak to there. So with the pop-up menu that we have on the site right now for people to sign up for distribution lists, we've had 128 people sign up for those lists. We have the ability on our website to subscribe to specific pages. So whenever an update is done on that page, that person would receive an email. We have 2 subscribers for the public participation opportunities page currently. We also have 12 subscribers for when a website notice is posted that's categorized as a public participation opportunities. And then one final number for you is just around 49 subscribers for our public participation newsletter list.
Yes, go ahead.
So I don't know what the curve looks like all the time with that. See, but I don't, remind me, did we?
Excuse me.
Did we put something in the Chronicle promoting those features and opportunities?
We have put various items in the Chronicle. I don't have the specific editions in front of me right now, but we have been promoting this. So we will need to continue to find ways to, encourage participation, sign up to these various lists. So that summarizes the questions that I have answers for you this morning. The other ones that were posed, we are working on and we'll bring more information forward at our next deliberation day. Just one final point that I'll make in terms of, we do have an adjustment summary that as council flags certain projects, we just make note of it on that adjustment summaries for discussion.
Right.
That would happen on Monday. So we have captured a couple of the items that council wanted captured on Monday. So that's reflected on the screen.
Thank you. We also had a couple of other questions, I believe, that were then deferred to departments, like questions for the fire chief, correct? And those have been shared with those departments directly?
Yes.
Thank you. And so whenever you're ready. I think it's Mr. Bain first. Starting out strong this morning.
Morning, Madam Chair and Council.
So we're in tab 22.
Tab 22.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to take a few minutes to review some of the highlights from the operating plan for P&D for 2022. And I won't go into our service areas. I think council's aware of what we do, what our work groups are, or how they're comprised. The org chart is there as well. I'll just get into some highlights in terms of the structure of the plan itself.
Just before you go on, if I may, Mr. Bain, for those who are watching live stream today, part of the reason we're able to move a little bit more quickly through this, first off, is council is the same. We haven't had any new council members. So as you said, we are aware of how the department works and the pieces of it. You are correct. And that we have a updates for budget over time. And so we are aware of that too. I just wanted to put that little caveat in there. We are fortunate that we don't have to do any relearning or reteaching this council term. Thank you. And I apologize for interrupting.
No apologies necessary. Thank you, Madam Chair. So looking at the plan, then we've identified some strategic priorities and goals in the operating plan. The intention here, of course, is to align as much as possible with council's strategic plan. There's 3 strategic priorities that are set out: regional leadership, economic development, and agricultural innovation and support for local food. And then specific departmental goals around the policy and regulatory framework, which of course is a large part of what we do in planning and development, and also safety codes as well. And so looking at a few of the specific actions, Madam Chair, that could be of interest here, strategy 1.1 deals with supporting mayor and councillors who are participating in EMRB board activities. That's the Edmonton Metropolitan Regional Board, and related committees and decision-making. And of course, that's all things regional, essentially. It's a huge chunk of the time that planning and development provides in terms of support for a lot of that activity. There's a great deal of work happening there to support the regional interest. Strategy 1.2 talks about exploring opportunities for shared service delivery partnerships with other municipalities in the Leduc region, related specifically to planning and safety codes services. This is actually a carryover from this year's plan. We started having some of those conversations with a couple of our municipal partners in the Leduc region. Those are, they started but didn't necessarily continue forward. So we want to be sure that we're not losing sight of this one. We wanted to carry it forward in 2022 and continue those conversations with some very interested partners in the region. Looking at goal number 2, strategy 2.1, organize and conduct another economic development summit in 2022. So councillors will recall that we actually had our first economic development summit late 2019. Went very well, was very well received, well organized, I'd say well executed. We had a lot of help with that. Brought a lot of profile and interest to some of the economic development work that we were doing at the time. And we were, of course, actively building our internal economic development program as that was happening. And we're still in the process of doing that, but we want to have these at regular intervals and bring forward some of the products that we're working on and talk about what Leduc County is up to. So we're looking at Q1 for that, likely targeting March for that event. And we also want to continue with the work that we're doing around promotional videos. I think council's aware that we're actually working on 2 videos that are in production at the moment that will be completed before the end of 2021. And so we want to have a series of videos that will profile the county's value proposition and offering in the economic development space that aligns with a lot of the work that Iris has delivered for us. So skipping down to 2.3, in continuing with the economic development content, we're going to produce an updated economic development strategy. So council accepted an economic development plan a few years ago. That was a 2 to 3 year plan at the time. So a lot of that work has actually been accomplished. Iris was a major part of that. And we're at a point in our evolution and building that program up where we need to have a more strategic vision for how we're going to move forward, what our strategic priorities are. And that's really council's expression of how we're going to do that. So we're already well into that work actually, but we want to bring that forward in 2022 for council's consideration. That'll be an important landmark for us. Looking at goal 3, Madam Chair, we are planning to prepare an area structure plan to support the development of an agricultural hub. So this is likely, or at least could be, that Highway 6039 area. There's already kind of a critical mass of ag supportive industry that there is developing around that node. So we want to put a planning process around that and establish a vision for how that's going to move forward. Looking at goal 4, of course, we want to update the county's land use bylaw. We're well into that work. This is a multi-year project. Council has previously approved the project charter for this, and the work is happening. It's been mainly behind the scenes. There hasn't been a lot of public profile on this, but the public pieces of this will unfold in 2022 in a big way. So we have some specific deliverables established to align with that. And going down to the bottom of 4.1, we're going to carry out an interim review of the MDP as well. Seems like we just adopted the MDP, but we're a few years in now. That was a 2018 document. So it's typical that there would be regular review intervals for those kinds of statutory plans. So it's kind of a check-in to make sure that council's direction is still valid and reflects how council wants to see the county move forward. And it also would align with the regional work happening at the growth plan, the regional growth plan as well. So, Madam Chair, those are the main points I wanted to cover in the operating plan. Of course, I'm prepared and happy to answer any questions on any other issues or any of those things I've highlighted.
So let's just take a break there. Any questions on the action plan as presented by Mr. Bain? Councillor Vandenberg?
I don't know if this is part of it or not, but I believe it could be and should be actioned. I would like to know what the additional cost would be to have all these permits that we issue out in the areas for a variety of different things, moving of dirt and major construction. I still believe that we should be putting up an appropriate set of signage so that our taxpayers are educated, knowing that the county is aware of what's going on here, so that anybody wanting to do work in the county through the process of osmosis knows that they've seen these signs, and the signage tells a big story as a taxpayer driving by. So what would the cost be additional to having that implemented throughout the county on a variety of things, which I don't know exactly what all those things would be, but I think there's a whole lot of value in that. I don't think it's a real big cost. I would like to explore that a little bit further. We brought it up a number of times, but it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. So this is money talking now. So let's talk money on it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Grant, it's nice to hear an agriculture hub at 60 and 39 it's pretty well the center of the county, and there is a lot of ag service is going on there now. So I'm looking forward to in the future to hear what your plans are and what you've got going on there, because it sounds like something very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll just build on that a little bit. Again, a great place for it. We also put a suggestion forward. It was, I did on behalf of Councillor Vandenberg, who had to step away for a bit yesterday, around moving forward the review or the development of the ASP for the South Devon, because that could be a tie-in to this hub fairly naturally as well. And so as we look at that ASP, it actually, I think, maybe makes it even more important that we try and do those somewhat in a coordinated manner. So those businesses, or the ability to just build at 39 and 60 could go that way as well. So yeah, the other one was the Genesee, and we had made that request as well. Any other questions on the plan? I have one last question for you, Mr. Bain, and it's on the municipal development plan. One of the things that we're doing on our municipal development plan currently is actually doing a check-in and seeing how we're doing on that. Will that ongoing work feed into this review in any way? So we do have
Yes.
KPIs on some of those. So the work that we've been
Yes.
doing ongoing will really help to inform, I would assume, the start of that and then move forward.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, so as you pointed out, Madam Chair, one of the activities we do routinely now is to monitor the MDP implementation, which is the first time we've ever done that
Yes.
as a municipality. And so that will be kind of feedstock into a review process. That's kind of the data that we'll bring to you. Some of the data we'll bring to you in terms of how the MDP is performing from administration's perspective, and you'll have your own perspective that will inform that too, of course.
And just one last piece on that, and we're looking at, again, a coordination between the review of the update of the land use bylaw and the MDP, because that's a big part of the MDP and they need to fit together, correct?
That is
So we're
absolutely
looking
correct.
at that coordination as you continue to juggle those. Thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions on the planning documents? Seeing none, we'll move into the budget pieces. What we've done is just a real high level, and then any questions, we would go through each of the areas where you have the explanations there and allow council questions on that. So anything on the high level page that you wanted to highlight?
Not really from
Okay.
my perspective, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we'll go into the first department, which is leadership and administration. The budget is provided there and the explanation for changes are also provided. So any questions on planning and developments, leadership and administration department? Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
Just a clarity on the org chart, if you do the count as 27, but in your narrative here, I guess it's leads a team of 26, so it's 1 + 26 = 27. Hey, I figured that out on my own. Pretty good.
That is the new math, Councillor Vandenberg. No questions on leadership and administration. And again, thank you to our finance department for the realignment to actuals. And that's really important because then we don't end up with pockets of money that are sitting and unused. So thank you for that. On to development services. I am seeing, again, the explanations are provided for variances. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
You've got a decrease in your training and conferences, and that would make sense for the past. But do you really think that it's going to continue to be that virtual? Is that where everything's going now? Is the virtual? There is less moving to real live type training venues?
Madam Chair, it's a question for sure. I mean, so the conference and training budgets have generally been tightened up overall, and there is an expectation that for 2022, it's likely that there will be some offerings virtually, if not all of them still doing that. So it'll probably be a hybrid is our best guess, but this, the numbers that we budgeted here are expected to deliver what we need, but is expecting that there also will be some opportunities to do things virtually rather than travel, because most of the expenses with conferences actually to travel and living while you're at a different location for a few days, right?
Yeah, I'm just interested in what your thought the trend is going to be. For example, CPAA, for example, is going to be live in this.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
And of course, we just had an RMA that was live finally. So it's a balancing act, I understand.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you spot any trends there.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I guess we're not picking up any audio. For our live stream.
Microphone is, oh, Kelly, pull it down. Okay.
Right in the eye.
Okay. We're on the development services page. There's a decrease in subdivision revenues and an increase in development permit revenues. Anything else council would like to ask on that page? Seeing none, and again, as we move through the budget, if there's something that comes up and you want to bring it up in our next meeting, please just mark it and we'll bring it up and our administration will get back to us. Go ahead.
Well, before we lose Grant, so the conversation we had yesterday around the ECDev FTEs and sort of the thought of moving and
Just
readjusting.
if I may, just part of our discussion yesterday was in camera. So just a caution on
Oh,
what we're
thanks. Was that in
talking.
camera?
It was in camera.
Okay, never mind. Carry on.
And we'll go on to the economic development page now for any other questions that may be brought up.
Okay.
And again, I just a little kudos to our planning and development department. We took on economic development 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and we've seen some really great movement from that. And that was learning and building the airplane as it was flying, but well done.
Thank you for that.
Go ahead, Councillor Lewis. Make
Thank
sure
you.
your microphones are down. Yep.
Can you talk to me about the increase for the Edmonton Global for 2022?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, that's part of a plan, a pre-planned scale up of all the shareholder contributions. So that was a decision that was made and
Council.
About
Leduc
8
County
months
Council
ago.
actually supported that at the time. So it was this might go back 2 years ago. But there was kind of a year over year increase to elevate the level of membership contribution to increase the overall operating budget for Edmonton Global. This is the last year of the increase, I believe. So what you see here, would there be some consistency likely in the number moving forward from here, unless there are other decisions made to the contrary. But this is the expectation is this would be the new contribution for Leduc County.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on economic development? Thank you. On to regional and long-term planning. I had a question in regards to this yesterday. This really refers to, or part of it is working with the EMRB, but also would fold in the new collaborative economic development entity as well. That's a regional piece, correct?
There would likely be a role there, Madam Chair. So that's still taking shape, right?
Right. There's
Um,
been no ask for funding. There's been no, yeah, it's doesn't have its legs under it just yet.
Yeah, that's fair to say. And I actually participate in the working group personally. So I attend as many of the meetings as I can and have an awareness of where the conversation is at and where it's going. So yeah, there would absolutely be tie-ins between probably our economic development group and regional long-range planning. It's essentially a sub-regional shared investment, shared benefit conversation. So, you know, it will have reach that goes across some of these areas for sure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lewis?
Thank you. Can you tell me where the earnings and benefits are for economic development? Because it's not on that.
It's in the leadership and admin group.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, thank you. Good clarifying question. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
Going back one, service overview, I was thinking about this and it just popped back in. But we've made a commitment to contribution to the Air Services Opportunity Fund substantially. And that money was funded from a special program. At some point, have you decided what some KPIs will be to measure the return on that? And I guess simply if more development type of thing over in the airport, that's part of the return, but it would be nice to know at a period of time that good decision-making went into this because we see the results. So if that could be something that you could earmark for future.
I have Ms. Klamosko.
Within our corporate plan, we've identified the Air Services Opportunity Fund as an item that we will monitor and report back to council on.
Thank you.
And I believe the monitoring mechanisms are outlined in our policy that we had put in for that particular reserve.
Yeah, so Edmonton Global is actually the controlling entity in terms of that fund, and they report on exactly what Councillor Vandenberg is
Okay.
asking for. So the expectation of all the contributors to that fund is that would be coming forward through Edmonton Global.
Thank you.
Okay, on to safety codes. Questions on safety codes budget? The explanations for increases and decreases are there. Go ahead, Counselor Vandenberg.
So I would suggest you're probably thinking that things are going to get busier based on what I'm seeing in the budget than it has for the past year and 2 years perhaps.
Yep.
And that's optimism and that's hopefulness. But that's what I really see here in some of these number changes.
That's correct. It's actually a reflection of what we're already seeing in 2021. So our year-to-date revenues for building permits, for example, which is a really good kind of indicator of, construction activity, development activity. We're at just over $800,000 in revenue for building permits, and our budget for 2021 was under 500,000. So it's bounced back. I'd say we're at pre-pandemic levels. We're at 2019 levels and earlier. So a lot of that is probably pent up demand catching up from last year that couldn't happen last year. Investment has kind of been moved forward into 2021 plus the 2021 activity that was already planned. But building construction activities are pretty much in the meat of the curve in terms of normal levels. Development permits, same. So trend appears to be that we went into the valley and we're on our way back out again.
Great. So the messaging from the conference last week is pull down your hat and get ready. So I guess it'd be interesting to see 6 months down the road, just to see how much of a curve, higher in the curve that is. Although it says, pull up your britches and get ready, but at the same time, don't expect it to go nuts. It should level off where we want it to be in Alberta as a change for a cycle. So it'd be interesting to see what it's going to look like here in 6 months.
Steady and predictable is really what you want, right? You don't
Yeah.
want huge booms and busts. You want
Yeah.
predictability for sure.
Okay. Any further questions? The general ledger sheets are there.
So once we're done with the general ledger sheets, we'll go over to tab 9, the fees and charges bylaw, page 11.
And I'm seeing no red on any of those pages, Mr. Baines, so there's no changes to current fees and charges from planning and development. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Counselor Belazer?
So what you're saying is in general, fees and charges have stayed the same. They haven't gone up and they haven't gone down, because I have in general have received a few phone calls about our fees and charges being, well, the word that I was told was excessively high. So we're not going up, at least, are we? Staying
We're
the
not
same?
going up. We're not going up and we're not going down. So we have periodically reviewed our fees, right? And part of that work is to compare with our peer communities. And we're competitive, right? So we're not excessive in the context of our neighbors, the rest of the region.
Tab 9, page
We have made those comparisons. We don't want to be pricing ourselves out of the market, right? That's not a place where we want to be. So, yeah.
And we both have sat in on conversations with some of the residents in
Yep.
regards to this. So I thank you for that.
Any further questions on fees and charges? I am seeing none. Appreciate the work that you've done, as well as your department always, and the support you provide council directly on a practically a daily basis. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Am I turning it back to you, Ms. Weiss?
Sure.
Okay.
So while Mr. Broadbent gets ready to go, we can all turn to tab 14 for
Tab
agricultural
14.
services.
Tab 14, Ag Services. Welcome, Mr. Broadbent. And whenever you're ready, quick overview of your plan and then into your action plan for 2022, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So with regards to our operating plan for agricultural services, jumping right down into the action plan to develop and implement a work plan for our local food program to continue to bring attention and foster local food opportunities in the municipality. So very successful, even though managing the situation last year with the pandemic, we had a very successful year, and we see a lot of momentum around our local food program. So continue to host the 5 workshops and then creating those networking opportunities. Again, working with our Parks and Recreation department and to know your farmer, know your food agricultural tour. People, there is a real appetite. No pun intended. There's a real appetite to get back out in our communities and see what people are doing on farms. So then goal number 2, maintain and improve transportation networks through developing and delivering vegetation management. Very apparent this last year, the progressive movements we are working towards between our 2 departments, agricultural services, road operations, and the management of vegetation along our road right-of-ways. So again, our KPIs or our goals for this upcoming year are to control brush with those selective herbicides less than 10 feet in intersections and right-of-ways adjacent to the road to improve driving visibility and promote efficient drainage. So spraying brush in intersections, road right-of-ways as identified. And then continuing on, support the grading and shoulder pull program. Again, some success around that program, working alongside our road operations group, our foreman and our grader operators, spraying brush spraying vegetation right adjacent to the road. So going to be targeting and highlighting 200 kilometers and having that completed in Q2 2022, early in the season.
I have a question, I think from Councillor Scobie.
Yep.
Just a comment, and I had brought it up with you, but some of their spraying on the brush, see you've got it kind of listed as less than 10 feet. And I'd mentioned it to you that they were hitting some places that probably shouldn't have been hit, spraying into the side of bush that was like tall and whatever. So just a little bit of care that needs to be taking on some of that. It kind of looks bad for us when they've sprayed into the side of tall trees and it kills, a little bit up there, and then the rest of it is growing above. So that's our policy, to stay under 10 feet. Well, we just need to make sure our sprayers are aware of that.
Mr. Broadbent, the other organization, if I can call it that, that kind of does vegetation management would be Battle River REA or Fortis. Do they have any discussion with us when they're deciding to go in, clean out under a portion of their power lines? And if they do, are we able to capitalize on that to help us perhaps use that as an impetus to clean that out? So I guess it's a 2-part question.
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. So regardless of the REA or the utility company, we do get their vegetation management plan.
Okay.
So we have an opportunity to review that and talk about that with them again often, and there's a responsibility for public notification for anyone who is applying herbicides. So it does go out to the public. If there's an adjacent landowner underneath the utility line, they have to be notified of those activities. So we are aware of it. We don't work in collaboration with, right? They're not doing a half mile and then we're doing a half mile. That's not necessarily how, because their priorities sometimes are different than ours.
But they do farther, they do their own right away. So I'm thinking that if they're going in and cleaning some vegetation out and now that piece is cleaned out, is it advantageous for us to go in and finish our little bit and then it's all done, so to speak? Or have we thought of that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It would be. Again, we'd need to look at it based on certain situations.
And I just had that thought today, or I would have given you that question earlier.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, 100%.
Okay. All right. On to goal 3.
Yeah, so continuing on with the regional ag master plan and elevating agriculture and the profile of agriculture and the importance of protection of agricultural land, working with the EMRB on the regional ag master plan. So continue to provide that technical expertise to the ramp task force supported by Leduc County. So again, hopefully we continue to see progressive movements towards that. And then refine agricultural services seasonal staff training to ensure competency while performing operational tasks. So you'll see something similar within our road operations group. We are building competency training plans with all of our staff to ensure that everything and everyone is trained and competent and geared up ready for our seasonal programs and permanent full-time staff as well.
Perfect. And the cross training there so that when someone is unavailable, we have somebody else to do the work. Absolutely. Great idea. Any other questions on the action plan? I am seeing one.
Maybe, I don't know if this fits in either, but, it's relevant that we're in the budget talks. And one of the things that came out of the Regional Agricultural Service Board, and then of course leading into the convention, and it's a great place of information exchange for elected officials to understand what their fieldmen, the issues and the problems are all about, so that they can advocate to the government to help with some of the barriers that may exist. But on the last quarterly or the area meeting, elected officials were not engaged. And I had brought that up as a concern. It included an election within there. And the timing of which was right at the election cycle, which you knew well in advance what that was. So I guess my caution is that if the fieldmen want to have the support in these type of forums, they had better pay attention to making sure that elected officials have an opportunity to participate. Because we're right at the budget now, and I'm thinking about this now.
And if I may, I now have thank you for that, Councillor Vandenberg. I now have a question for Mr. Coleman. So part of the corporate plan, it's not tough. Part of the corporate plan talks about an advocacy plan. Well, part of when you look at developing that plan, will it look at, I'm going to say all of our departments. So we would need advocacy around FCSS. We need advocacy around ag. We'll need advocacy. Is that how you're looking at that plan, which would kind of help answer Councillor Vandenberg's?
Yeah, a little bit answering Councillor Vandenberg's, but the greater question that you raised, yes, that's the intent, is to create what are the issues and problems that we're facing as municipalities, regardless of the department.
Yeah.
And what does that look like provincially, federally, and through our associations, quite frankly. And so a little bit of the answer could be some of that regional work that these other agencies are involved in, for sure. But I know the issue he speaks to, and that's really about fieldmen just looking at their calendars a little bit and managing.
Exactly. And things occur. Okay, so let's move into the detailed budget. The first part, as always, is leadership and administration. And it looks like there's a couple of alignments here for the most part. Any questions on the leadership and administration budget? I am seeing none.
Just one.
Oh, going back.
When you're looking at seasonal, you have 13 seasonal, and with the new math, there's 7 full-time. I can see that. Is a seasonal probably, it's not half-time, like a third time, quarter time? How do you sort that out?
Yeah, it depends on,
Yep.
It depends on the positions that are hired. We do
So
have,
it's a variety.
yeah, we do have a variety of 0.37 FTEs, and then we do have a few 0.5 FTEs,
Okay.
6-month positions versus 4
Just
month.
curious.
Yep.
Thanks.
And that we're able to ensure that the work we need done is according to their plan, so we're not having people but we don't need to have.
Yes.
Good job.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Agricultural drainage. Didn't need that last summer. Crop pest control. Your service overview talks about clubroot and blackleg. Has fusarium, are we just not talking about it anymore from a provincial perspective? And so it's not reflected in the work that we do?
Yeah, that's a very fair comment.
Okay. We know it's still out there. We know it's still a problem for some people, but because of how the province is managing it, we're taking our lead from them as always. And so that's the response.
And we will see a note probably in the next year, 2 years with the volume of corn that's being shipped around the province for feed and feedstocks. We'll probably see an increase in fusarium areas.
Which will require then a abrupt response as opposed to a steady response. Equipment, maintenance, and fabrication. Questions on this? And we are grateful to have this, I think at the county, because it's not only agricultural department it works for, having a handyman who can do some repairs or build some pieces ensures that we are being efficient. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Is there an anticipated revenue for the non-potable water point out west?
No, it is, there's no fee for that service.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions on equipment? Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
I've just been kind of flipping it. Where is the rentals part in all this here? Is it?
Fees and
within
charges.
these?
Fees and charges.
Okay, so my question is that a worthwhile, is it used very frequently? Are our customers appreciative of the rentals opportunities that you have? Is it a thorn in your behind? How is that program received and how is it to maintain?
Yeah, so long story short, agricultural service boards and the departments across the province got into renting out a variety of different pieces of equipment that you can't typically get at your local rental shop, right? So a sprayer with someone who is trained and competent to support a resident in how to use it. Impossible to rent a cattle scale, impossible to rent a squeeze, those kind of things. So our spraying fleet of equipment gets well used, right? So everything from our 50-gallon, 25-gallon, 20-gallon little utility sprayers gets well used. Our pasture sprayers get very well used. Less frequent are our like cattle scale and squeeze, but they do still get used. I would say maybe a handful of times a year. Our trap rental, our live trap rental, they get used a lot. So skunks and miscellaneous. Yeah. So it's a service level. But it is something, especially around the spray and spray equipment, that we see as being, a resident service level that we can support them in doing it properly. Because there's nothing more frustrating than investing time, effort, money into spraying weeds and then having it not be successful. So if they rent it through us, we can talk to them exactly about how to calibrate, where to purchase the herbicide, how to do it, timing of application, all of those things, which then if they're successful managing our weeds, then we don't have to go down that enforcement route.
Maybe they'll spray the highway ditches for us. And so when you manage your inventory, does it move? Do you kind of cyclically say we need some more? Do what you have in inventory now just seems to be a static flat line?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of keeping them up to date and maintained and.
Yeah, it's poly tanks and iron that we fix in-house and a few little high pro pumps, and we do it all in-house, and it's essentially no expense and just a service out to the residents. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. On to local foods and horticulture. And again, this area came in last term to meet the need of our strategic plan. And I think that it's been very successful for only having a 4-year start at it. So again, good work to your department and that alignment with the plan. Questions? Okay, roadside vegetation management. Go ahead, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Your increase in chemicals, because your inventory was depleted, is that, how do I word it? Is that normal?
Yeah.
That you would work through it all?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, we have significantly reduced the amount of herbicide that we had purchased. So we had inventory. So we just didn't budget nearly as much, hence the reason we didn't purchase nearly as much the last couple of years. We've chewed down into our inventory, meeting our current service levels. Like that's the herbicide that we need to purchase to do what we need to do.
If I could follow up.
Absolutely. Go
Does-
ahead, Councillor Lewis.
Does it have an expiration date? Does it go bad? or-
No, you just have to be incredibly mindful of how it's managed, right? So, yeah, like it'll over an extended period of time, you have to be careful of certain herbicides. Lots of our herbicides now are granulars, right? So we do have some that are still liquid based, but we do have lots that are granulars, which for packaging and longevity and all that kind of stuff, it's better, but it just takes more slurrying and agitation while spraying.
Okay.
So if I rent the sprayer from you, I get the good stuff from you too?
No.
I still have to go to UFA to get that?
Yeah, so we don't, so there is like under the code of practice.
So you're saying there is some good stuff?
Well, for certain individuals, yes. Farmers, bona fide farmers, absolutely. We do not decant herbicide. So under our service registration through Alberta Environment, the municipality cannot decant small or sell small amounts of herbicide.
And that's regulated even more because you probably need a premise identification number to buy the good stuff.
I got that.
Oh, I didn't say you didn't.
You need to, yeah, qualifying good stuff. All
Whatever the good stuff is.
herbicides used properly is
Right.
good stuff.
That's good.
What is, yeah, that's more the issue we sometimes run into because more isn't always better and one more glunk isn't always better, right? So it's more,
I've
hence
lived
the
through
reason we
that.
rent out equipment so that we can help people through that because more isn't better because your nice aesthetic trees within your yard can die pretty quickly if you use the good stuff improperly or you use the bad stuff improperly.
All right. On to sustainable ag program. And again, these are fairly small budgets rolled all into the agricultural budget. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
So this is a question for the future kind of thing, but it has to do with sustainable. And I'm going to talk about irrigation. If the climate is changing and we are getting drier in our climate, what are some of the things that your group would be thinking about to aid in terms of irrigation? I mean, we see that predominantly down south, and that's a fact of life. It's a reality. But if we continue with the type of weather patterns and it's all about adapting to climate change, you need to have a conversation around potential irrigation.
Mhm.
Do you have those conversations now? And I mean, we're talking about a budget that's 5 and 10 years down the road. Is that something that you develop a module on for possible slip in fit for the future?
Yeah, there's so kind of a two-part answer to that. So irrigation districts themselves, so down south, they are a municipality unto themselves, no different than a drainage district. So at the point of when the feasibility studies would be done provincially to encourage drainage districts or irrigation districts, sorry, it would be a provincial type of initiative with the support of the local municipalities. The issue around irrigation and irrigation districts is allocation of water, right? So you know, the South Saskatchewan is fully allocated, meaning a new irrigation district couldn't be established. Our North Saskatchewan is not fully allocated. I know there has been provincial conversations about irrigation from the North Saskatchewan watershed. The expense associated to it right now, you know, is probably deemed not feasible, but there has to be consideration, you know, if you're looking 40, 50, 60, 70 years, right? So as a local authority though, you know, to support those type of activities for sure. But inevitably it would be a provincially mandated, we are going to move in this means, and it would be under an irrigation district, which has an act unto itself, right? So.
Further to that,
Yeah.
and so you are thinking about it, and so is the province talking
provinces.
about it.
Mhm.
When it comes to the water licenses, who gets them, who gives them out? Is there some strategic strategy around that?
Yeah, the province awards them, so Alberta Environment would award them. And it would be under a Water Act license or an irrigation district license based on how much is needed, right? So I would think, again, I don't want to extend myself too much in areas that I'm not familiar with, but there would need to be cost benefit analysis of what you're using the water for before any consideration would be given to how much water you're going to be allocated.
Thank you.
Okay, on to weed control. And just note that this does include the earnings and benefits for seasonal staff, correct?
Right.
Okay, wild animal pest control. Your department's fortunate I did not bring in my pocket gopher tails because you would have gone broke. Just kidding.
No, you should have.
Any questions on wild animal pest control? Seeing none. Then we have the general ledger sheets, and then to where, Ms. Weiss?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So into our fees and charges, which is tab 9, page 3.
Page 3, tab 9, page 3. We have lots of red lines here.
Yeah, I can touch on those. So the RFE or RFID radio tagger. So that was, we didn't purchase those. The province provided those to municipalities. I gotta believe it's about 10 years ago at the time of when RFID tags were coming online for our cattle industry. So the province had given us 2 of those, and we have been, they are out of date. They no longer work as they should, and
Okay.
there is not a need to replace these. Producers are the one time a year we get them out into our community for the one individual. It's unnecessary to repurchase.
Okay, nope, that makes sense. Moving down then to changes. I see the hawkweed spraying, just a little bit about that. And I know we talked about this in Ag Service Board, but just a little quick, why
Yep.
those changes?
So just when we see, new policy, when we see invasive species such as, hawkweed or toad flax in a low infestation level where we can work with the landowner to control it, we're going to work towards that. The fee associated to it doesn't really warrant the need for it, right? We want to work with the landowners and get rid of the weeds, and that's our primary focus. So and it's any new invasives, right? So there are a few invasive species that, come in, right? Himalayan balsam, gypsum weed, we've seen where we'll just go and attack it, early detection, rapid response, go attack it, get rid of it, and it doesn't really warrant the $50 per acre charge.
Okay.
Fence line spraying, again, policy change where we're no longer doing internal fence lines. We're only doing those out to our road right away where there was never a fee for service before anyway. So internal fence lines are no longer being done.
Responsibility of the property owner.
Yep, for sure.
Councillor Vandenberg, did you have a question on fees and charges for agriculture?
I do. I will proceed. Around your trap sales for the magpies,
Yeah.
which I think they're pretty smart now. You should probably call them dog traps. Anyway, can you not buy them in the PVs and then, well, you can't. I was going to comment that maybe you're competing against, I didn't realize well, those are raccoon traps I'm seeing now.
The traps that the material and traps that we build, so we either
build
supply
these?
it.
Yes.
Yeah, so we either supply it as a kit, so you can rent them, or you can purchase the kit from us, or you can purchase the complete assembled magpie trap. The magpie traps that we build are those going back probably, and Rick and Dwayne can probably correct me, but probably 25, 30 years ago, the province had put out a really good publication on the proper magpie trap, and they work incredibly well. To say that there may not be an aftermarket is naive of me. There may be something you could order from PV Mart, but magpies, as we all know, for residents become a significant issue, and for the material costs, this is another service for the residents that's very much appreciated.
Okay. Thank you for the explanations on fees and charges. With that, Ms. Weiss?
Thank you. So we're going to continue, Mr. Broadbent will continue on with road operations budget, which is in tab 25.
Tab 25, road operations. Mr. Broadbent continues to be on the hot seat.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Council. So yeah, the organizational chart has been adjusted to reflect movement forward towards how staff will be supervised for the upcoming year and future years. So there are adjustments there. And with that, there has been minor adjustments within our operational plans for our department. So jumping right into the action plan, goal 1, strategy 1.
Just hang on. So
Yeah.
any changes in the org chart are reflected a bit in what you're going to talk about your action plan?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So continuing on, improve Leduc County transportation networks, use the 2020 gravel road strategy that we talk about lots of Public Works Committee and with council, and the data from the 2018 rural roadside study to guide road operations maintenance program. So again, this will be our 4th year of our rural road initiative program that has been incredibly successful. So again, for a 2022 program, 23 kilometers of shoulder pull, 35 miscellaneous spot repairs, and 15 road ditch improvements. So going on to the next one, consistency in road grading across our gravel road network. Lots of work has been put into our road grading program. And from that, we talk lots about the cycle of road grading from a 4% crown in the summer to a 2% crown in the winter in anticipation of freeze up. So bringing a report back to our Public Works Committee in the fall to discuss fuel consumption, greater blade usage, and road crown. We'll be mindful of all of us because it is a real success so far from our program. Evaluate the graveling program to examine its effectiveness and opportunities for improvements. So Q3, report to the Public Works Committee. And then continue the annual vegetation management program that supports road grading and sightline improvements, going on to something that is very similar within the agricultural services operation plan.
Any questions on goal 1, strategy 1.1? They're laid out there. Councillor Lewis, go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to ask you if we knew what the savings are on the greater blade usage with the greater training programs that we've done, but you just said that you would bring it back to
Yeah,
Public Works.
we
for
will.
a
We
report.
will bring a report
Yeah,
back. Yep,
that's perfect.
100%.
Counselor Vandenberg?
So I'm interested in the evaluation of the graveling program. What are the type of element, what are you interested in reporting back to us? What are you interested in capturing for information to report back?
Yeah, so is there an opportunity to lessen our graveling program with our new grading technique?
Great.
Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Broadbent, you and I had a sidebar conversation at some point about the spec that we use, the spec that we use for our gravel. And in some places on some roads, especially after we've fixed them with the Rural Road Initiative, you need something that might be a little bit bigger to firm it up. So I guess that fits then in rural roads, knowing that you have the ability to do that, and then we'll gravel with our spec gravel. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
And that's good to know that we are being mindful of what we need to build up that base. Isn't necessarily the same thing we need to be driving on.
Build up and incorporate, right? And we have seen, and it's not it's a science in a sense,
Yeah.
the importance of incorporating that bonier 40 mil gravel into the base layer, because we do see it start to move its way up.
Yeah.
But that is part of the Rural Road Initiative program.
Okay, thank you. Further questions on 1.1? Seeing none. 1.2.
So this focuses around the maintenance of our asphalt and cold mix program. Working with, and I know our outstanding engineering department brings incredible information to Public Works Committee and on to council regarding our regarding the evaluation of our pavement surfaces, and it's essentially working closely with them to ensure that we are repairing and increasing the longevity of our asphalt surfaces in advance of a new road program paving area. So major asphalt and cold mix repair program, complete repairs of asphalt failures on main roads, and then one subdivision rejuvenation and one continue on for 2022 with a reclamite trial.
Okay.
Summer asphalt and cold mix maintenance. So again, complete the street sweeping, line painting, and crack sealing program.
Any questions on 1.2? And thanks for the shout out for your work with engineering. That's great to hear. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
It probably would do us well to, in one of the public works sessions, along the lines of the street sweeping, to know exactly, again, to visit where the street sweepers are going. What's happening that I'm seeing, and this is in the South Vistas, and you're probably you're aware of it, is people are seeing the street sweepers working out in the rural, and they think that that their streets are getting swept. But it turned out in this case, Buddy was incorrect, but yeah, that's his perception. So it's not that we can't do it. It's just that you hadn't had it tabled. But he thought that his tax dollars are paying for it.
Okay.
So it'd be kind of probably a good conversation to have so that we understood where the boundaries are in the program, so that we can maybe get ahead of some of these things when we're out visiting with our peeps.
And I see the chair has made note of that, the chair of Public Works. Thank you very much. Councillor Lewis has made note of that. And again, another opportunity for perhaps some communication. Once that's determined and really clear, that would be helpful. Go ahead, Councillor Scobie.
I guess I just want to make a comment on, you mentioned the crack filling and our pothole repairs and whatever. And I got to give kudos to this county for keeping up crack filling to start with. Our pothole filling is, we are so far ahead of Alberta Transportation that it's a very common conversation to tell people that Highway 39 is not our highway. Glen Park Road is nice to drive on. It is our highway. And it is, most times when I get a complaint about a highway, it turns out I have to tell them, well, it's not our highway. Ours turn out to be the good ones. And the ones that are falling apart are Alberta Transportation. So good work with our road operations.
Well
And-
said, great.
And I mean, the single greatest way to maintain your asphalt is to ensure that you crack seal it. And I understand, like, there are some that look just like snakes on, like, it seems like you're just about crack sealing all that, but still, to save that asphalt surface, that is the single most important thing. So when we see those minor increases in crack sealing, well, it's as a result of us having to do more, oil going up. But again, it goes back to this, probably the single most important thing for preserving that asphalt surface.
Good job. Keep it
Thank
up.
you, Councillor Lewis.
And thank you, just to follow up on the crack ceiling. Who goes around and reviews that and surveys what needs to be done? Is that the foreman or the grader operators or a team effort?
Yeah, no, it's 100% our manager and it is our foreman. And we have the roads in which, because as a new road, part of the road program is paved, obviously that's removed off the road, but then a new road after we evaluate it is added, but it's working with our engineering department as well, right? So there are roads that we haven't crack sealed in the past, but when we start to see, alligator cracks or linear cracks, then it is added to the plan.
Thank you for that. On to 1.3.
Sorry. Yeah, just review current processes to gain efficiencies. So again, completing a process review with our finance department on the entry of gravel slips. So just things I think we as an organization can work at just to gain efficiencies, because there are some manual processes with that, and I think there's an opportunity to move forward.
And that's great to hear that it's not the same every year, that you're always looking for some improvement, because improvement usually means efficiencies and efficiency usually means money. So thanks for that. Goal 2.
Create train framework. So very similar to our agricultural services competency training on various operating pieces of equipment. So develop a training framework with our road operations group and in collaboration with corporate services to establish that training framework for our road operations staff. So critically important is we build a fully competent staff group where individuals can run multiple pieces of equipment and they are competently trained to do so. So building that framework around that and ensuring that their health and safety and well-being and our residents is put at the forefront.
And I think you're right. I was just going to comment on the second part. You mentioned health and safety, that a well-trained employee knowing what they're doing on whatever piece of equipment or whatever activity helps us to ensure their safety as well. So good to know. Goal 3.1.
Yeah, serve residents and visitors with continual improvements of department services. So implement e-services on Leduc County website to enhance access to services. So really around one of our largest programs for our residents where they participate in the dust control program is having the residential dust control program online. So there is an online process so you can apply and you can pay online. So working closely with our finance corporate services department to get that all up to date.
Okay. More efficient, more effective. Questions before we move into, go ahead, Councillor Balazer.
Yeah, question. Now, we all know what product we're using and we still all get the complaints about it. Is there anything in the queue that you would know that may be coming that we could change up to? And is there any dust suppression trials coming that we can look forward to, maybe something different to try?
Yeah. So I can, if the complaints are being heard by council, I would like those passed on to me, because we had 504 applications this past year and we got very, very few complaints. So the product that we're using for residential dust suppression and the cost associated to it is still the most reasonable product, and how it works, especially on a calendar year like we just had, given that it was so dry, and its ability to take in humidity and moisture and then still provide a dust free surface is pretty awesome. Like we went through last year when we looked at our entire designated dust suppression and not ensuring we don't have those continuous long lengths of calcium that go a mile, 2 miles. Those have all been eliminated, right? So it is primarily just the residents and the residential program, and it's cost prohibitive. There's other products, but the expense associated to it and the option for the resident to have those products applied in front of it is entirely up to them. But it's at their expense.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vandenberg?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Do you look after the recycling of the asphalt?
Up here,
Yeah.
like on Fifth Street?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so is that continuing, is that a pretty flat line process? The amount of tonnage coming in over 2 years is about the same, and so when you go to crush, is this a crushing year, by the way?
Yeah, this is the crushing. year.
Just
We'll
if you
touch
go
on it.
into the
Yep.
next page, it has a little bit more description, Councillor Vandenberg, that might help.
So do you find that that is a very well-received product to have on hand for your toolbox? Not for your toolbox, but for the
Yep,
roads,
for-
but in your toolbox?
Not really.
100%. So yes, and we'll get to it. Not only is the crushed concrete, the 63 mil crushed concrete, an asset, but also is the asphalt millings. We are, because of the volume of asphalt millings that we currently have and the volume that we have to mill this year, we're going to start adding 30% asphalt into the crushed aggregate. Many municipalities and areas have been doing this, and it is actually forming, I don't want to say a far superior base layer, but it's actually, it's adding a lot of strength to that subsurface. So we are going to start utilizing some of those millings that we have as part of the concrete. So when we mobilize in the spring, you're going to start, or this spring, you'll start to see that being blended, but we are also going to keep our inventory of millings itself, because absolutely as a surface, like the 63 mil, we're not applying onto the surface. The crushed
Right,
concrete, we're not applying onto the surface. The millings, we do on occasion, absolutely. And having that, we're seeing lots of success, but it's early, hence the reason we need to continue on with the reclamite trials. We saw a lot of success with using that solvent reclamite, pug milling it, mixing it, leaving it, and then that oil starting to be released, and then going and grader laying it, and then packing it down. So it's the oils that get trapped, not unlike an asphalt shingle, right? There's oil within those asphalt shingles. You just need to bring it out. The same holds true for those millings, right? So yes, it is an absolute asset for us to have.
Cool.
Okay, and just, we're in the leadership and administration page. So another question if you have, or do you have a question on his plan?
Yeah, I need to jump back to 1.1 on the action plan. In your evaluation of the graveling program, when it comes to public works, I would like to have another conversation around the county graders versus contractor grader conversation again.
I see our chair and Mr. Broadbent are writing that down. Okay, on to leadership and administration. And that does show an increase for concrete crushing, gravel audit. Anything else on that page that you need additional information or is not addressed? Councillor Scobie.
See, we've got 12,000 budgeted for grader operated training. I was kind of under the impression we were finished with that.
Yeah, so the summer training is absolutely all complete. We did some winter training. We want to continue on with some winter training, and it's kind of 2 days per operator. So there's more that to do. And then also you're never finished training.
Right.
I mean, there's still different tactics and techniques that we can work with them on. But yeah.
And again, $1,000 a month. If you look at $12,000 is worth it if we get a better quality on our road. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
So this is a section that talks about, and I hate to get back to the asphalt and the concrete recycled, but that is offered for sale to other municipalities as well, correct?
No.
Or is that?
no,
It's
we don't.
not. So it's
no.
all internal
Mhm.
and the costing of it is whatever the cost of the crusher is. We
That's,
don't sell it or get a revenue from it in any way.
no, that is, it is $6.95 for us to crush a ton of material. And that is for us, for our use. We're not in a position to sell it.
But it comes in from other locations, not just
Free,
the county.
yeah,
Okay.
100%. So that is not, there's no fee to dump. And it's a free product that we receive and then we crush it and utilize for our own purpose. So for, our Rural Road Initiative program, our base repairs, that's the material we're using.
Councillor Vandenberg, you brought up some questions about this, and I've just had a sidebar with Councillor Lewis, who's the chair of Public Works. Perhaps we need an update in a Public Works about how the concrete and the asphalt recycling programs work. Because I think that's important. If you have the questions about those things, we need to actually understand the operation of that. And I'm not even sure if we've had that last term, any real information about that. So I think that would be really valuable. Again, at our community hall, when we pulled up the old concrete, we were able to actually dispose of it by bringing it here to Nisku at no cost, and made it a lot easier for us to go ahead with some other things. But we might need that information.
And further to that, if I may, where my head is going with this is, and in that conversation, could you use more? Do you exhaust everything that you do in 2 years? Is there an opportunity to generate a revenue by offering it to our community places out and about?
Yeah.
Because it's superior material.
Yeah. You'd have to be very mindful of to not compete with private industry, because there are private industry providers locally that sell that exact same product.
So we can't, for our community halls that we support,
Oh,
that's what I mean.
community halls?
Those type of, which I think that's about it, maybe some great.
Yeah.
Community halls.
Those type of things could be
Recreation
considered.
areas.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
our expense. But anyway,
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, even the community halls, it'd be us giving them money for them to give us money back.
Yeah.
They don't self-fund themselves. They run deficits. We provide funding on an annualized basis. So if it's a program that community halls want some of this material, then that's something we could work out in a program. And it's just a gift in kind is a better process than looking at some sort of marketable system with this.
well, this is a good conversation because I have a community hall in my area now. And I have other things I can bring to the table if need be.
And you know where to take your concrete when you replace that
I do.
sidewalk.
Yeah, and we will talk about that at Public Works
Yeah.
Committee. It's so that the millings are an asset, but they are maintenance. They're maintenance heavy as well, right? Like it's not an asphalt surface. Like it is not even a cold mix surface. They are asphalt millings that generate a different type of dust than a typical gravel parking lot.
Thank you.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you. Your increase for the repairs and maintenance to vehicles and machinery, is that basically on graders due to lack of warranty, or is that just on everyday vehicles? Or
Yeah,
both?
so we've seen our 3-year average actuals go up. A portion of it is graders, but it is just a general increase, with our fleet and fleet maintenance.
Yep. It's the cost, and we know inflation is going to create even bigger issues. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to dust suppression. Go ahead, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Considering dust suppression is a topic of one of the new initiatives, I guess. I know we talked about bringing it back to Public Works, but I'm not satisfied that we're done talking about the new initiative. Will this come back before we're done budget? Maybe that's to Dwayne.
Mr. Coleman.
So Madam Chair, are you referring to the last mile?
Yes, the last link program,
Last
sorry.
link. So that's something, council, if you want to put money in the budget, now is the time during budget deliberations.
Yeah.
Last year, we had the discussion, it was deferred to Public Works Committee. Public Works Committee talked about it and didn't do anything and then referred it back to budget. So I would encourage you to make decisions about whether you want to put dollars into the budget or not to fund some of those initiatives.
Yeah.
Because right now it's to go back to Public Works Committee for another
Right.
discussion.
So can I don't know if we make a motion, but make sure that it's brought back before the end of budget for us to discuss?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we can add it to the list for
Okay.
the last day of budget discussions and whether you want to
Okay.
allocate some dollars to that. I think it'd be appropriate to
Thank you.
have that discussion.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Any further questions on dust suppression? On to graveling, which we know will be reviewed, which is a great piece. Go ahead, Councillor Scobie.
I guess I do have one. You're showing a decrease, of 10% reduction in gravel on savings based on hauling distance. That seems.
Yeah, there's been a reduction in the program. So a 10% reduction in the program, which is fine for this upcoming year. And then based on us delivering on that program this spring and then into next fall and being mindful of us evaluating our entire gravel road network, we'll be able to bring that report back to the Public Works Committee. So it's not necessarily just on hauling distance, it's a reduction in material as well.
Okay, I can understand the reduction in material. Our haul just got a whole lot longer, so I wouldn't see a
But-
reduction in the cost of trucking this year.
No.
But for 2022, because there's less being done, then there's less trucking. Gotcha. Pavement repair and maintenance, which you did talk about, and I think is highly supported by council and would agree that our roads are in fairly decent shape.
Maybe you could offer a fee for service to the province to do the main roads. No, that's
Seeing
definitely
a
not.
no, so there is an increase for that, but always well done. Road maintenance is the next section. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
Just a sort of a related comment to this. I want to say thank you to the response that your department shows. When our customers report things like damaged culvert ends and the confidence that they are seeing when they do take the time to report it via myself or directly to you, it doesn't matter, and the response that you give it. That's a lot of mileage. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
Okay. And again, we had a blessed summer for replacing culverts because we didn't need them.
Mowers are kind of hard on.
Signage. Okay. And then Ms. Weiss will direct us to fees and charges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, if we could go to tab 9, page 19.
19. Overall, it looks like fees and charges are remaining the same with a couple of changes. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Broadbent.
Yeah, just sale of used culverts. Generally speaking, when we pull a culvert out, there's not much left of it. And then also like used grader blades too. We've went to carbide blades primarily, extending the life, the old soft metal blades. It's not something we'd want to, it's not worth our time for $1 a piece.
So those are your only changes. Any questions on fees and charges for road operations? Seeing none, again, thank you to you, Mr. Broadbent, and your team. Appreciate the responses you were able to give and the outline of your road operations and your agricultural budgets. Road operations, we know, is probably our most visible department that we have. And certainly we are seeing huge improvements in hearing that from our customers. I think it's my first year campaigning when roads wasn't an issue. So good news back to your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, get back to work. There he goes. You don't need to remind him. That's what I like about him. Thank you. I said, get back to work. See? On to Mr. Thomas. Tab 23, Public Transit.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Council. You will see a little bit of change in the process or in the budget for 2022. We have included under the service summary a section for Leduc County Transit. This relates directly to the possibility of the termination of the joint venture agreement with the city of Leduc, which we anticipate to occur late in 2022.
Okay.
So moving on to the enhanced transit. This is the transit that's provided to and from
23.
the EIA, Edmonton International Airport. And this is a split cost with the city of Leduc. So we split the cost 50-50 for the 747 transit service. Not a lot of changes, if anything, just a reduction to align with the actuals.
Okay, moving on to Leduc Transit.
Leduc Transit budget, City of Leduc operates Leduc Transit in our partnership. That partnership is a 65 split with City of Leduc and 35 split with Leduc County. You will see a little bit of, again, a reduction in some of the anticipated ridership that's been provided through the City of Leduc, which they are assisting with this budget. Further, you also see some increase for operating Leduc Transit, and that's directly relates to the fuel costs that we are experiencing right now over last year.
Mr. Thomas, I believe the city of Leduc had an announcement, I can't remember how many months ago, about their on-demand service. Two questions. Well, I'm going to make an assumption that we were involved in that decision, first off. And secondly, how has that impacted the bottom line of the operation of Leduc Transit? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you are absolutely correct. On demand came into place, I believe it was in September. It was in late Q3 or early Q4. It only affected, it affected all the transit service except for Route 1 and Route 10.
Okay.
So we are on Route 1. However, we do have other routes that connect into Leduc County, into Nisku specifically. So the on-demand has gone extremely well. There has been some adjustments to the on-demand service. Initially, it provided 2 transit zones, one in the city of Leduc and one in Nisku specifically. We found that a little bit confusing for the ridership, and so we've made changes and we've adjusted it to one zone in its entirety. And that assists with the flexibility of utilizing buses that are available for the on-demand, as well as easier for the transit users to travel from Leduc County to the city and back and forth specifically. It hasn't made a lot of changes. Sorry, it hasn't made a significant amount of difference for those users of Route 1.
Okay.
And that is our route that we typically rely on. You will see today's December 1st?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay, thank you. Today, we are introducing additional services, enhancing our service to North Nisku, Border Park, if you will. So we've increased, we've actually put up, I think it was 22 additional bus stops in North Nisku, and we will see an adjustment to the service in there. It provides 2 things. Number one, we've seen some business growth in that area. Number 2, we're anticipating some travel interruption for the Spine Road coming up next year. So this new service will provide less interruption and more service to those businesses.
Well, I have a question from Councillor Lewis or a comment.
Thank you. Do we go into Edmonton? Like, I know we're just south of Ellerslie Road. Do we go that far, or do those buses come to us? I had a question from a resident that takes the bus.
Route 1 starts first thing in the morning in the city of Leduc. It travels down Highway 2 into Century Park. And then it comes back from Century Park through Nisku, through Spine Road, 23rd Avenue, Spine Road, and on through 8th Street.
Okay, thank you.
And in the afternoon, it's actually reversed.
Okay, and thank you for the forethought of the changes on the Spine Road and making sure we're ready for managing traffic disruptions there. That is great. Councillor Vandenberg.
Well, in additional to that, thank you to the county for hearing our business park and their concerns that they brought to the table, and the county responded. So that was part of the reason, and it's noted, it's noticed. So thank you for that quick response on that to provide a solution, probably earlier than necessary, but nevertheless earlier than necessary for the spine, but certainly providing a solution for those taxpayers.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And on to the last one, which is Leduc County Transit.
So as we anticipate, as I mentioned before, termination of the joint venture, Leduc County needs to prepare itself for a transition. So we start up our own service. The funds that are allocated to this are reflected in a full-time employee, and it's a portion of a full-time employee, but it's a portion of that full-time employee that will share duties between transit and engineering. And I believe that again was presented in camera on November 29th for
Correct,
council.
we did receive that. My question is just about the termination with the partnership, if we're calling it that, with the city of Leduc. Is that dependent on when the regional transit authority system gets up and running? Or is it just that's when we're going to be done?
Madam Chair, to answer the question, it makes most sense at this time to continue with our transit service that we have with Leduc Transit.
Okay.
It provides probably one of the best economically feasible transit service in the region. And so we are hanging our hat on terminating that contract when the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Service Commission comes into place.
Okay, that makes sense. We'll keep running as long as they're running with us. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
Additional to that conversation, my understanding is as well is that we're going to be we're going to be doing a transit study, an analysis. And I think the results of that add into this conversation too, as to when effective termination or enhancement of that relationship could be as a result of that information. Am I incorrect in that assumption?
To some extent, the feasibility study that we've applied for a grant for, and we will do it, a portion of it no matter what. That feasibility study will provide not only present day requirements, but also future requirements. So we're not hanging our hat completely on terminating the contract once a feasibility study is done. But as I mentioned earlier, this is a transition year where we need to prepare for that termination of the joint venture and for Leduc County to provide service on its own. There's lots of parties that are involved, as I mentioned before, with the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Service Commission that we need to work with to provide very seamless transit service to our residents, our businesses, and those people wanting to come visit Leduc County and Nisku business.
Thank you. And our taking the driver's seat, pun intended, around this allows us to look at many options that we're not tied into if we would have gone with the commission, like a public-private partnership, other municipalities that are running. So it really is for us lots of opportunity. That's a great idea. Okay. Yep, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. So I guess as a forecasting for the future, are you looking to earmark money for 2023 and beyond for transit as well?
Yes, that would, to answer the question, Madam Chair, Leduc County will operate its own transit service. And I suspect that will start operating. If I was a betting man, I would say 2023.
I'm currently using my husband as an Uber, so if you're looking to go that way. All right, where to now, Ms. Weiss?
So if we head into fees and charges, tab 9, page 21.
Okay. No predicted or proposed changes. Is that correct, Mr. Thomas?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Klamosko, I think would like to add something. Go ahead.
Just as are coming to wrap what we had on the agenda for this morning with public transit, if council would like to proceed with more information this morning to not break at 11, we have an opportunity to do a few items that were scheduled for Monday next week in terms of legislative, fiscal services, and general non-departmental and requisition expenditures could be presented this morning.
Councillor Lewis is a sequential learner and has not had an opportunity to review those. So that won't work for her. Anybody else? That's one comment.
I'm in agreement as well. I haven't
Okay,
prepared myself.
so we will break
But specifically, that is what on Monday?
legislative.
So what part is that? I don't see that in here.
It's the 1045 segment, so legislative services, fiscal and requisition.
Am I on the right date here?
Uh,
The 6th
on-
of December?
On December 6th at 10:45.
I don't know, I hope so.
Sometimes you have a different agenda than everyone else,
I
and I'm
don't
not
know.
sure
I'm just
why the
verifying.
agenda gods do that to you.
What does yours look like?
I do have it on
Right here,
the-
1045 legislative.
What the heck do I have?
Councillor Vandenberg uses a different server, it appears.
It says December 6th.
Yeah, the front, the agenda you have in your front.
I got it from there. In the.
So we will find that, but we will do
Look at
some,
that.
I think he might just read ahead and get them ahead of time, so. All right, and thank you for destroying the copy that is not working.
It was all good to this point.
So with that, then we will break. I guess part of it is we'll get back at 1 o'clock and start with Mr. Honesty and then into engineering and utilities. So I will recess